back, everybody, to the next phase of our West Street School Building Project. Neil did send us a new budget, but we're not gonna talk about that first, because we don't have copies of that here. So what I first wanna say is the committee needs to be reappointed at the end of the month. Does everybody still wanna be on the committee?
Is there a choice?
Sure.
Well, there is. They can replace you with other people, but if you want to still be on it, I'll let Cricket Jim know. Silence?
Now it's gonna start getting done.
I know. Well, you never know what people's time frames are. I'm gonna assume they're all still in it.
Yeah,
Okay.
We showed up today.
I know. We've put so much hard work so far into this project. I'd like to see it through.
I agree.
I
We're
mean,
not getting any new people on
I'd
it,
like to see
right?
it through.
Okay. Okay, since she's not here, I'll go on to number 3, which is we started looking at, we being Tammy and I, grants to see what we could find. And we did find an ADA grant. And since Tim, ADA is really the key here with what we're spending money on. But unfortunately, we don't qualify currently because we don't have a grievance procedure that's been approved by the town. So we're gonna get that approved on Monday and then be able to submit for the grant next year. And it's $250, so that would have been great. Legislators. Haven't heard anything from any of our legislators since we last contacted them. What do you wanna do? Wanna contact them again and say this project's still going?
I'd like to say,
But they haven't done anything for this town since.
God knows when. I can't.
Well, they've done some things for the schools have gotten money and, right? That was that thing that I thought you got.
Yeah. I think that they need to be we need to reintroduce the circumstances to them and let them choose if they want to do something for us or not. That's how my view of that is. I don't recall any of them ever doing anything for this town. I mean, maybe a few little things, but not like you see it, with the rest of the towns. You go into the grant here, grant there, this and that. And I think that we need to turn around and put some pressure on them a little bit.
Well, is there a particular time where the grants dry up? Are we done? Are they done for the year?
I don't think they're actually done. I think you can, yeah.
It depends on which ones you chase, because they have different deadlines.
Oh, I didn't mean grants, I mean the legislators. If we contact them, is it too late to get money from them again? I mean, we've contacted them twice already.
I don't think it's too late.
No, I think that
I was told to always contact her, always call them, always be basically a pain in their butt. I was told by somebody.
Well,
Well, again,
their
maybe
side.
once we start actually working over there.
Yes. Because right now, there's nothing for them to
latch on
excited to say, look, I'm part of this project or whatever, kind of thing. There's nothing there for because we haven't started anything there.
Except now we know we're going forward
Correct.
with a certain amount of money,
Yes.
and that is it. So we are going forward.
Yes.
Well, they're not.
I'll put out the letters again. I'll send them to Mindy and Jake and Gomez
Yes,
Gomez.
Gomez.
and see.
I think the committee and the select board should also be involved in having their name put on there and say, we are for this project, we are going forward, and that indeed we need to meet, or what can you do, guide us in a direction that's gonna lend us some credence, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you want them to say, well, this is what we're gonna do, this is what you need to do, this is how it should be done. They need to guide this town or guide us,
They being
the reps.
legislators.
The reps. They need to guide us if they're interested.
Well, we were supposed to meet with them, but they never got back to us. So.
I feel like they felt like this wasn't a solid project. For them to focus on.
Really?
Mhm.
I didn't get that from
No, I got it
from Homer.
But now that we are going forward.
Because they said that until you guys know what you're doing, then.
Well, that was original.
Mhm. Yes, but now, that's what I'm saying, reaching
Oh.
out is a good idea.
All right.
Because that's what they're, I believe that was their thought process.
I'll just write a letter then saying,
This is a go.
I'm coming back, asking how you can help us. If you wanna meet with our committee.
Alright.
Because this is a go now,
um,
not up in the air.
And then ask for grants. What are we gonna do? Just keep on looking?
Gomez's assistant. She's very knowledgeable on grants, even though it's federal grants she mostly knows. But
We can get a federal grant.
I'm just
Oh,
letting you know
yeah.
it's not state. But she says reach out to her.
Who's this?
Gomez's assistant. I forgot her name.
That's all right.
Yeah,
we know
for
it's like
federal?
Hmm.
that. Yeah, federal,
Yeah, okay.
that good, it'd be Richie Neal.
I was just saying, Richie Neal may come through with something too.
Yeah. The other thing I explored the other day, and I already talked to Tammy about, is that I was just online going through stuff, and I'm saying to myself, masssave.gov, and what, and they do have commercials. I don't know if you had opportunity to look at it.
Yeah.
You did look at it,
Yeah.
and I believe some of it. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it's applicable to what we're
It
doing
might
right
be.
now.
I did see the commercial, I looked on the commercial side and checked it out,
Yeah.
did a little bit today, but.
Okay.
Mass Save.
Masssave.gov.
I
They
think
do
I
that.
went on there,
That's just like if you
Well,
want
they
to
do your
generate,
energy auditors at the
yeah,
house.
something of that
Yes.
nature,
Yeah.
that might be able to be beneficial if,
Because we are a green community.
yeah,
Right.
we are a green community, so I mean, if they want, us to insulate it a different way or get, the windows, we might be able to get, some money for the windows.
Some relief
some-
somewhere. Yeah.
so Steve, you're looking into that?
I did look into that, and I already discussed it with
Yeah.
Tammy. And she said she was gonna look into it also, so I don't know exactly where we're at this particular point. But I certainly do see, my thought process is somebody there, instead of us, we need these guys over here, but we also, I'm thinking needing somebody maybe from that company. I'm thinking of removing the whatchamacallit downstairs, the transformer, okay? Who can we talk to there that would be beneficial for Mass Save? Because National Grid is gonna be removing that, putting it outside, but the thing is, they have all the contacts, and they know the people to talk to. And it's one of those things you need to say, hey, guys, who do we need to talk to in order to move this project forward in a positive way that's gonna be beneficial for, Mass Save and the whole bit, with insulation, with windows, taking the asbestos out and all that. So, there are programs out there that Mass Save has that I was looking at. I still might be wrong, but I believe it's applicable.
It might be.
It might be.
Doesn't hurt to look.
Yeah, also doesn't, contact
Sometimes you just gotta get a
people.
phone call and,
Yeah.
at least for your house, they come and they'll do an audit,
Yes.
and
Yep.
maybe we just have to walk somebody around the building.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They do all that.
Okay, so what's the action here?
I'll look into it more and I'll see if I can get a contact number on that.
Okay.
I'll call someone.
And then lastly, Tim, I know I sent you months ago now. We had this company called Innovis that had given us some proposals for HVAC as well as lights. And I sent you one of them, I didn't send you both of them. What do you wanna do with that? Do you wanna just hold it aside? Because, or how can you work with them? Knowing, I can send you the proposals and you can tell me what you think.
Yeah, if you could send them to me again, just so that they're at the top, I'm sure I can find them if I rummage deep enough.
Yeah, yeah.
But the reality is, there's kind of two issues with that. One is depending on how you do it, public procurement laws and how that kind of works or doesn't work. That's kind of the thorniest piece of that.
All right. Well, they'd have to bid, yes?
Well,
Unless there's
because they
something
were
with,
providing equipment, right?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Is that how it was working? Or
I didn't hear what you said.
they were providing or proposing on a certain set of equipment, right?
Yep,
So that's kind of the question is, and Neil, maybe you know better than I, of whether or not we'd be able to do something like that, with the mechanical system, or how that would work, or could that work in any form for public work? Because normally you have to have, either, or equals, or 3 equal products, or you do, performance specs, but you can't typically do a proprietary, which is, if I remember, and granted it's been long enough, like you said, this sounds like it would be, which I know we can at certain times if it's in the best interest, and I think it's a process where you have to, the town would have to issue an affidavit for it. You can do some proprietary work in an instance like I had a case with an elevator refurbishment where it was because the town had a pre-existing contract, service contract, they were able to go with something specific and proprietary. But I don't know if this falls under that or not.
okay. Well, I'll forward you it and take a glance at it and let me know what you think.
Okay.
All right, Neil, are you there? Yep,
Lynn, can you hear me?
yep, we can hear you. So we,
Excellent.
now I'll have a copy of your budget that you put together, your proposed budget.
Okay.
If you wanna chat about it, or do you want us just to ask questions?
So, yeah, so I mean, I essentially what I did was I left our contract and Tim's contract unchanged, right? So that is what we have so far. And then I looked at a greatly reduced FF&E and technology scope and sort of reduced contingency and backed into a construction number for the overall project. So if our project is limited to 5.7 million, which was what we had talked about last week, Lynn, and there are no changes to my or Tim's contract agreement, you will have us under contract for CA services for 9 months, and the resultant construction contract would be worth just under $4 million. And we can, there's certainly some space within the budget to sort of move buckets around, but generally speaking, right, the largest buckets of money that there are for the OPM, the designer, and the construction number. And again, maintaining the 10% contingency that we had maintained before, you're roughly looking at about $400,000 in construction contingency and another $100,000 in soft cost. So that was kind of where the numbers settled out, and they can certainly be massaged one way or the other, but I'm certainly open to any questions the committee may have relative to where we stand or how the numbers were derived.
Neil, the construction, the construction portion, is the infrastructure piece, the heating, is it still gonna accommodate the original area, or has that been downsized just to that footprint? The well, not the well, but the electrical service?
So that's a good question, and right now it's not a question that I can answer because as I said, I sort of backed into the $4 million number, based on what our commitments were to all of the other parties. So I don't really know the answer to that right now. It would, again, long-term, it would behoove the town to put in an electrical service that will support the whole building. I don't believe that Engrid will allow you to put a second service into the same building at a later date. I think it's one building, one address, one account. So, short term, you don't need a 1200 amp service because you're not powering it. Long term, if you fill the building, you're gonna need it. And you're gonna wind up, whether that cost gets deferred and pushed off until later, that's a decision that this committee will have to make sort of once we look at the schematic design and what we think we're looking at for construction costs.
The same would hold true for the heating and the
Yes.
fire suppression.
Yes.
Are we gonna build it
That's my
to
next question.
do the whole school like we originally, or are we just gonna hold back? So those are the three key: heating,
Electrical.
Electrical
and
suppression.
suppression.
Yeah, fire suppression.
And I think you can extend that also to the fire suppression system,
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, right.
We would be, we would be required, again, the prudent mind would say, buy a fire pump and a service and storage that's big enough for the entire building and leave the piping and the capacity to a future contract. But that may not be in the cards for where we are. Just may not be viable.
Well, the other piece on top of that, which I spoke a little bit about with Lynn this morning, is with us only doing that north wing, we're talking about an occupancy load that's far lower, where do we cut our bathrooms in half now that we no longer have the additional assembly use from the COA? It makes, again, similar conversation as what Neil brought up with the other comments. It makes your future use have that cost. It's different cost for that, where you have to do it, but then you're able to get into the building easier at this point.
I would love to say prep it for future use, but I don't think we have the money to do that. And that's gonna have to be a later ask down the road. Even though it's prudent to do it otherwise, we don't have a choice.
I think that there are some things that we should look at. Like, what are the things that absolutely cannot be redone later without significant cost, right? Your electric service, certainly, your sprinkler service is right there. And then if those are the only two things that you did to 100%, and the rest of what you did was limited to the north wing of the building, you might get there. We might get to the finish line.
Yes.
But I think it requires some study. I really do. I think we gotta look at it objectively with cost in mind and look and see what we can really afford to do.
Would those be add-ons when we go out to bid? Alternates.
Would what be an add-on?
Doing a full fire suppression.
No, I think, well, the fire suppression might be able to, but I think that the electric service is really going to be either you have to do it or you don't have to do it. I think that's gonna be rather binary.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that, whereas the fire protection system, to your point, we could kind of approach it with a base bid and an alternate, whereby we could size what the pump would be and what the storage would be, for just the north wing, and then make sure that our structure that we put it in is big enough to provide for a future larger pump, and then have an alternate for if you put the larger pump in, what would the upcharge be? And at this point, you could also take the approach of, do we only put the storage needed, water storage needed in that we need for the north wing with room to expand and add additional tanks in time? And again, that could be an alternate situation where you look to see, well, can we absorb that cost to do them now? But I think to Neil's point, the electrical service, you're gonna wanna bite that bullet now if we have to.
Are we still, is the timeline to get a bigger service still out of control? Gonna slow us down?
I haven't heard it.
I think it depends, I think it depends on how big a service you need.
So 1,200's not a major concern? If that's the biggest we need?
Say that again, Lynn, I'm sorry.
So if we go with a bigger amp system, 1,200, is that not a concern? Because didn't we have this concern that the electrical components were the ones that were gonna, that have been taking a long time to
Yeah,
come
it's
in?
gonna depend, Lynn, on what the size of the
Right. What's that size, do you know?
lead time associated with the equipment.
All I heard was lead time
Yeah.
associated with equipment.
So in other words, we don't know yet, is what you're saying?
To be determined.
Okay.
We don't know what's determined to miss it.
Well, I think what's to be determined is the size that we need,
Yeah.
and then,
Well,
What the future might be.
well,
Availability.
I think they can still come in with the 1,200 amp service. And then only put a panel in for the 400 or whatever amps we're gonna need. And then in the future, we can put sub panels.
did you hear that?
Nope.
Yeah, put in the larger service, but only put in a 400 amp panel and then sub panels in the future.
That's logical.
That would certainly make the most sense.
Sensible guy.
Two things that
I know.
Are you an expert?
I know. Let me check it out from that list.
no such thing.
So what are we doing next?
Oh, well, okay. Well, before you ask that question, Dale, Neil, can you explain to Dale why you went to the 5.686 million as opposed to what we actually had, which was 5.3 million left?
Lynn, the numbers that we talked about the other night
Yep,
were 5.686 million,
yep,
and the commitment that you had told me was expended was $30,000 for the tank removal.
yes.
So that's what I created the budget to represent.
The numbers we've already paid, that was.
Right,
Right, that's
it's already
already
in here,
deducted.
the number's already in here,
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah, he's included the cost in this whole
so far that we've expended.
number.
See, we paid them that,
Yeah,
that. These are paid.
Okay.
cost to date. All right.
Does that make sense?
What'd you ask?
What's next?
What's the next steps?
Well, I think the first thing is, couple things. One is I'll go back to the engineers, get them re-engaged and going on this, cause they've been paused. Wrap their brains around some of these questions in terms of what makes the most sense and is going to be the most cost effective. In terms of sizing the electrical system, the fire protection and the HVAC and kind of what the approach is so that we can talk about that further with you. I think one of the things that I'd like to do working with Sean a little bit is just to kind of get a better handle on parsing the numbers, what with, like what you and I talked about earlier today, Lynn, starting with option C, how we trim option C back further, to get to the number, because we know there are certain things that we have to do, which are the HVAC, the abatement, the windows, the fire protection, the electrical, are kind of our baseline and the accessibility. So then it's just a question of, do we have any real wiggle room beyond that to achieve more?
Well,
And so that's kind of the first exercise that I wanna do on our side, is just to try to figure out what is that additional money that we can put towards some of the asks that came out of the programming exercise, as opposed to just making the building habitable, if you will, and putting people inside.
well, I think we still, it's gonna make it a little bit more difficult on your part, but I think we should be bidding this out bare bones, but with alternates to bring us back to level C. Because if we get any grants, we're not gonna know where to place them. So if it goes out to bid, we wanna know what the bare bones is, but we also wanna know in alternates what C is, what C is
How
gonna
close
cost.
we could get
Yeah.
to
And
Right, how
But
close
have the
we
bid,
get.
so if we end up with $1 million grant, a multiple of grants that equate to $1 million, and it brings us back to C level, to the C option, then we should know what that is.
Right.
Now, rather than start the process all over.
Yeah, think so?
That's three.
What?
We're keeping track of his.
Good ideas.
No, and I would agree that that makes the most sense, because even if you don't get the grants immediately, you're still gonna want a cost associated with those elements, which oftentimes when you go for a grant, they want to see those numbers anyways.
Especially when these grants might be specific to, energy or windows or whatever.
Yeah,
Yep,
makes sense.
You may not have a choice when you apply for it, a certain grant is earmarked for certain things.
So what's our timeline looking like then?
I haven't really had a chance to look at that yet, just because I just got back last night. But, I'm going to reach out to our engineers, get them going. I'm gonna try to get a meeting scheduled with them ASAP so we can talk and get them going on kind of figuring out, the balancing act of what makes the most sense here and sizing the equipment we have. I think to some degree, since the desire is there to continue down the option C path, it's really just a matter of kind of backing into, if we had to reduce it down to the absolute bare bones, we have the desired piece already, it's just what is that small bare bones version, and developing that piece. So let me work on getting them, pulled back together and re-engaged, remobilized, and the same thing on our side between Sean and I, so that then we can, kind of pull that information together, because we'll need to do at least some initial legwork to see where the numbers fall, to kind of give you that list of, here's the must-haves, here's where the number appears to be falling, and then on top of that, kind of go through and get a better handle on prioritizing what are those things that, okay, if we do have the funds, whether it's because it fits within the budget or it fits within a future grant, what are those additional things that we do then beyond that point? which some of the things that Lynn and I spoke about earlier today have to do with, like the bathrooms. Do we or don't we end up with any partitions within the classroom spaces that currently exist to create more private offices? Do
Good thing
we
you
end
said the
up
rest of
with
that sentence.
separation
That would
between
work.
public and private in terms of having transaction counters or things of that nature? And in some departments, that may be something that you must have, and in others, it may be more optional. And those are the types of things that we should really drill down and to figure out where do we have that flex space to allow the budget to reach where it needs to reach.
You had Dale nervous, there wasn't gonna be any partitions in the restroom, so.
That's like,
Oh,
what
the
word?
restrooms will have them. I'm talking offices.
Got a funny look here when you first started talking.
And make you sweat a little.
I like your.
So let me have that reconvene my design team, and then I can get back to Len and Neil in terms of a time frame, because I'm sure on my side we can probably get going quicker than they can, but I wanna figure out kind of keying people back into the project.
So
Since they've been
next week,
paused.
So, can we meet next week? With anything?
A shovel?
I don't know that we're gonna have a lot at that point where we'll be able to. We could, if we wanna hold it and just present whatever we are able to get to at that point.
Might as well keep it rolling.
I would say keep it rolling and
Yeah,
don't
just
have
keep
anything.
keep the progress moving forward, because it keeps us talking and make sure we don't go down a rabbit hole that you don't want us to, so.
Well, what we'll do is we'll schedule it, and then if you don't have anything, then we'll cancel it.
What
You know,
time?
I think that's the most prudent.
4 o'clock?
So June 24th?
Yes,
4 o'clock work?
if we do it virtually, yeah.
That's fine.
What if we did it later in the week? Give them a little bit more time for next week, like Thursday or, can't do that.
I'm out Thursday. You were too.
They think they know how to hit the little white ball around.
Yeah, I know, I'm like, we know what you're talking about. Golf.
Maybe not. The 25th would just be, I mean,
Yeah, all right,
I
so
I
it
can
doesn't
do it a
matter.
Friday, but, you know, it'd have to be earlier in the day.
Yeah, we don't watch it later today.
Just leave it at the 22nd.
24th,
24th?
4 o'clock, okay, Neil?
Yeah, it should be okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, and we can just plan on for now, like we were when we were in a good rhythm, just plan on that, and then ideally plan on the first as well the following week, and just start rolling through it. Try to get this
we'll just plan
locked in.
Tuesdays at 4 o'clock like we were before, from here on out.
Yep.
And eventually we'll see you guys again, in person.
Yes.
Anything else, guys?
Not that I can think of.
Anything else from you guys?
Nope, I'll update you once I have a chance to talk through everything with the design team, confirm whether or not we're, as Neil said, keeping our number where it is. Cause I need to ask that question of everyone on the team, and then, schedule wise, I'll give you an update on that, and then we'll work towards getting updates that we can talk through in our subsequent meetings.
Perfect.
Tammy, do you have any questions? No?
Oh, you know what, did you guys meet Tammy? She's our new TA. I forgot that you guys haven't met her yet.
Oh, no.
What Neil has.
Hi, Tammy.
So that's Tim, and that's his sidekick, Sean.
Nice meeting you.
I don't think anyone's called you that before.
I mean that in a loving way. All right, well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys next week.
Glad that it's still alive
So
in some capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil went to the town meeting, he can tell you about it later.
Yeah, I'll have to give him a call.
It's amazing how smoothly a vote can go when the town gets up and supports its own project.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a very
So
different,
definitely night and day from the other one, it sounds like.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the right thing to do, period.
Yeah.
so. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next
Thank you,
week.
Week. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
All right, it's 5:10.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Great.
Bye.